This conference will now be recorded.
All right, as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only. Nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. All right, so based off this pre-market that we had this morning, it didn't look like much, but we had our stories, and that's pretty much all that we needed. Most of today has been overall our everyday stocks and more of the name brand stock, just because of the fact that we do have the midterm elections coming up tomorrow. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not expecting anything too crazy going into the afternoon. Maybe a little bit more selling, and we're going to talk about the selling that we've been seeing today. But it looks like a lot of people out there are kind of jumping ship until we see what happens, because that definitely should give us some sort of catalyst afterwards. It just looks like a lot of uncertainty. So let's talk about Apple first of all. So we knew that Apple had great prints coming into this morning at 204.50. So we pulled up just about to that point, a little bit over, and it wasn't as much as you would have expected. But basically, the second the market opened, we just started to see things. Most people out there start dumping things. With Apple, I mean, we knew it had to come back down. We knew it had to go under that 204.50 and really, really show us a bigger move based off the selling. It's funny because we were waiting on Friday afternoon, and Friday afternoon is not typically one of the best times to be trading. Most of the time, market makers are kind of basically checked out. We'll get a Friday runner every once in a while, but we got the exact move towards that downside that we pretty much were looking for in everything. So Apple, the big news here is basically showing us that 200 at 200, we have a lot of selling. Low volume due to the end of earnings season. So yeah, that has a lot to do with it as well. Obviously earnings is a big catalyst for pretty much any stock, and well, especially more traded stocks, but almost any stock earnings is going to be some type of catalyst. But coming into November, and then to the middle of December is usually some of the best trading that we're going to see. I can't hear anything right now. Should I be hearing audio? And I could say yes, but unfortunately, that's not going to work. So at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of just kind of waiting back and looking. But once again, at the end of the day, we still have seen a ton of selling. So like I said, with Apple, we had some beautiful selling coming into that 200 point. I've been finishing up my class this afternoon, and I can see just coming back, you can see, I mean, not anything great again, but we do have some nice prints coming in that 200 level. So the pull up coming right back towards basically that 202 level. At the end of the day, is that enough? No, I do think Apple's going to come up before we end up seeing that real big move down. But at the same time, we have to take into consideration the fact of what's happening tomorrow and how everyone's kind of at that standstill. So I would not be shocked to see, like I said, and a little bit more of an afternoon sell-off and bring us back down to this double bottom by the end of the day. But like I said, the prints that we have at 200 are telling us that Apple is not done towards that downside. Let's talk about AMD. So AMD finally brought us underneath that 19 level. So just basically almost 1875 exactly, but we do have some really great selling that came in at that 19. Almost everything that we were seeing coming into this morning, we just kept seeing dumping. So we saw that bullying, that that the movement continuously after that selling basically coming, continuing to go back down, but it had to pull up. So that 1950 spot that we had there, I'm perfectly okay with a 50-cent pull up. Do I think overall, just like Apple, do I expect it to go up a little bit more than that? I do, just because of the fact that 19 got hit so many different times. So based off of that fact, it did hit this print line that we see right here. Okay, it came right back up to that at 1954, 1950, and we're coming back down on good selling. So this is another one that's showing us, before we get any moves to the upside, these things are not done whatsoever. And one of the main thing, well, actually the main subject that we're going to be talking about in classes that are going to be starting tomorrow are stories. So the thing is, and I'm not gonna go far into it, obviously, because we're going to be talking about it for hours over the next few weeks. But the more contradicting prints, when I say contradicting, I don't mean that these prints say that don't follow it. Because remember, if a stock has to pull up or pull down, people are going to make money on it. But the more different types of prints that we see, the more up and down. So pull up, let's say we have, like, for instance, in Apple, great bid prints, but the stock still has to pull up. Then we get more of a buying, then we get more selling. What do you think that means for the stock? And this is just a point that I'm going to leave because we're going to really hit this hard over the next week. But what do you think that means for the actual chart within a stock? Well, longer moves, absolutely, no question whatsoever. But what's the chart going to look like? So the more things that we see that says it has to go up and go down and go up and go down, I'm pretty much just giving you the answer now. But what does that mean? Yeah, we're going to see a period of consolidation. So the top of the prints to the bottom of the prints are going to tell us what that consolidation is going to look like, but that's what it tells us. So the more we see, remember when I first called T out, what did we see? Nothing but selling. And the stock just went down. It was that simple. But what happens is that once we started getting the ask prints and we needed the pull up to come back in and everything that, the more meat to the story is the best way that I could put it. It's telling us that it's not going to be quick. We're going to see a bunch of that. A stock like Apple, or not so much AMD, but a stock like Apple, you're going to get great trades back, both ways. But depending on what the range and the personality of the stock is, we have to understand that and put it towards what our game plan is. That's what I meant. I'm just on the beach. Good for you. It is raining and cold here in New York today. So AMD, once again, do I expect it to go up a little bit more just because of the amount of times that it hit 19? I do, but we have monster selling at both 20 and 19. So there's a lot of money that we're going to be looking to make there. But remember, our price target was under 19, so we made our trade. Everything that we said that was going to happen, happened. Same thing with Apple. All right, so keep that in mind as we're watching this. But like I said, the more times that's going to hit a level, as we all should know at this point, or unless you're new, is that the stock has to go up a bit more than what we're seeing coming into there. Let's take a look at, those were the two of the stocks that we had on our list. Now we had AYTU, which AYTU, it has great buying at 150, but you got to remember these cheaper stocks, especially after the great buying at 150, they move in about 5-cent increments unless the personality changes. So we did make a great move up to 165. The problem is that it had to pull back down. So does that mean it's not going to go over $1.50? No, doesn't mean that whatsoever. It's just, unfortunately, the volume died right after about 10 o'clock. There's just nothing really there for us to look at. And then ACRX, I told you guys this morning, and if you go back to the morning meeting that is on our YouTube channel, I just wasn't confident at. I didn't like what I saw. We put it on the list because there was good buying in it, and don't get me wrong, it's still in a consolidation. If we come over here and look at the daily chart, there's no reason this thing doesn't break out. It's just from what I saw this morning, I did not have that feeling that it was going to happen, and that's exactly what we saw. It ended up just pretty much selling off. So let's talk about a few other stories that we have out there, because I literally, when I went over the scanner, guys, I don't see anything new. There's nothing that I really care about too much. Most of the volume out there is going to our everyday stocks, and it's a slow day. Don't get me wrong, a great day. We had great moves coming in, but it's just, it's one of those days where, because of the political climate out there, we're seeing a lot of stuff just kind of sitting around and waiting. Well, let's talk about Twitter for a second. So Twitter. Okay, first time we came down to 33.50, we had one bid print, and then the second time we came down, I think it was 3, if I remember correctly. It was about 3 bid prints. So it's pulling up right now from those bid prints coming in. I'm expecting it to go lower before we really see that move up above the 35 level. Remember, the dominant market maker, depending on the type of trading you're doing, you got to look at what your game plan is. If you're day trading, the dominant market maker is going to be in a shorter term aspect. And if you're trading overnight or you're an options trader, the dominant market maker is going to be bigger, because remember, the more the stock is going to move, the more shares that we're going to see coming into it. So with Twitter, I still do expect, and for the longer term side of things, the amount of times that it hit 35, that's the dominant market maker on the longer term side of things. But based off the bid prints that we're seeing, it's showing us it's going to continue. It's not showing us it's going to continue a ton, but it still has a move towards the downside before we end up seeing it break above that 35. Facebook, it's the same, basically almost the same type of deal. I mean, we got some really good prints that came in at 149. It was a beautiful trade once it pulled back up to come back underneath that 149 level. And it's just been kind of just like everything else. We're stuck in this consolidation of once again, just kind of not knowing. We have our stories, but at the same time, I'm not seeing anything out there that I really love for coming in to actually be able to trade this afternoon. Did I just hear a gold nugget? So SQ coming in at 74. We have a few ask prints up there, but remember, all the selling was coming toward. There was a ton of selling that was coming towards the downside. But SQ was interesting this morning. It just did not really give us a ton of controlling prints as it was coming back in. So do I expect, just like everything else I'm seeing out there, I do expect more of a pull up. This is not the move I'm expecting overall. I'm really expecting overall a big move down within the market. And don't get me wrong, we've got a great move, but it just, in my mind, it's not what I see that's going to happen. So I'm expecting a lot of stuff to come back up first before we end up seeing those sell prints come back in. And remember, 65 has great selling, not once, not twice, but 3 times at that level. So I am expecting, you can see it's, everything's showing signs of pulling up first before we really end up seeing that come back in. It's not done from what I say, and I could not agree more, as I just went over. So other than that, guys, I don't really see anything I care too much about. I mean, AMD, we're going to follow. I mean, T is another one. T, this thing is just going to take forever. It's coming back to reality. You can see today it moved 26 cents. That's the type of stock that T is. So I'm still expecting to get up above that 31 level based off the ask before we end up seeing all of this selling. Remember, look at the daily. We have a staircase coming in. So I'm expecting a move back to the upside. I'm looking for it to hold this trigger right here. Okay, around that 31.87. Let's see what the exact number is. Around that 31.80 before we come down. Now, I wouldn't be shocked to see it come to the low of here and fill in that gap of 32.05 before, but that's just something else that we need to see. The story is clear. It's just a long read. It's a giant book that we're just waiting for, because the fact it just takes more time. When you know a stock doesn't move as much, you have to have more time within the moves that you're expecting from there. And like I said, other than that, guys, I don't really see too much else. We have some great stories on our everyday stocks. I am expecting kind of that, and as Nitesh would say, the drift up in most of this stuff based off what we're seeing. But other than that, I'm not really too happy with anything. I mean, INUV doesn't look terrible. It's made a really good move for such a cheap stock, and it looks like it still has, the ability to continue. But I don't really know what the prints are, and I'm not going to tell you something that I don't know. And coming up to that 140, it looks like we were having a little bit of trouble. But we'll put that one on our side list. It's really pretty much going to be our everyday stocks and our everyday stocks that we're going to be following, and maybe if something else comes back up. But just like we have no idea what the hell is going to happen tomorrow, I don't think anyone else out there really knows either. So AYT we've already spoken about, and that's pretty much it. Now, anything else out there that I missed? So our name brand stocks is really what we're going to be focusing on, okay? Our Apple, our Facebook, our Twitters, our AMDs, because there's just not much else that's really out there. All right, guys, so let's get ready for the afternoon. I still have a little bit more work left to do with classes, so I'm going to be kind of in and out. Once we get to maybe probably about 2:30-ish, I'm going to be back full time, unless I see something else that that excites me. But as of right this second, I just don't see much. Also, by the way, Starbucks had monster prints at 65. That's very interesting. So after it broke past 65, had monster prints on the downside. On the way up. So did we see what order got hit? Was anyone watching when the order got hit? Because sometimes you get those weird prints if you're not watching. Yeah, that's kind of weird, to be completely honest with you. But at the same time, it didn't break up above. So it didn't really pull up. That's a weird one. From what it looks like, so Steve, you saw the order. What was the order look like? Because from what it looks like right here, it looks like those prints were bid. Just because the fact it jumped up, and then we're just kind of slowly coming back down. I know the prints say bid, but sometimes not the prints themselves. Sometimes when you get a stock and you just get like that weird color, yes, the order themselves on the matrix, because sometimes you have a stock coming up and you can actually blatantly obviously see its ask prints that are getting hit, but it shows up in a different color. It happens, I mean, not enough to really even focus on, but sometimes you do see that. It was a bit on the way. Oh, I didn't see the order out there. So that's very interesting, because if you look at that 65 level, it's reacting as if they were ask prints. So unfortunately, there's no way for me to go back to the order and look, but that's a very interesting thing. But at the end of the day, if we're not sure, not something that we got to look at. But I just from the buying, just from experience, the buying that I saw at 65 on Friday, and based off of the way it's reacting to it, it just for some reason it makes me think that maybe it was an ask order that got hit. Yeah, no, I know, because it doesn't make any sense. That when you want to talk about contradicting, that if you have huge buying at 65 and then huge selling at 65, that doesn't make more of a contradiction than that. I must have stepped away. Yes, well, for the rest of the afternoon, I'm going to be finishing up our classes for tomorrow. Remember, for the 2 weeks of our classes that we're going to be doing, it takes a lot of work for me to have to put in. So when things are slow, I'm obviously, one of my number one focuses coming in. And unfortunately, I was not looking at Starbucks at that point. But let's hope, like I said, and well, there's nothing to hold on. You know what? You can hope for volume. Okay, but yeah, you don't want to hope for a trade, but hope for volume coming in. And like I said, overall, I still feel that we need a lot more of an up move in these stocks before we see them coming back down. Just not satisfied as much with the amount of pull-ups based off the amount of selling that we've seen. All right, guys. So I will talk to everyone in the chat room, and happy trading.